I made him wait for hours. A homeless man, disheveled and reeking of the streets, clutching a tattered bag like it was his most prized possession. I, the arrogant physician, couldn't be bothered. Little did I know that bag held a secret that would shatter my world and change everything I thought I knew about myself. You think you know where this story is going, don't you? The heartless doctor learns a valuable lesson about compassion. Everyone hugs, roll credits. But let me tell you something. Reality hits a hell of a lot harder than any feel-good movie ever could. My name is Dr. William Harper, and I'm about to tell you how I royally fucked up. How a single silver bracelet brought me to my knees and forced me to confront the monster I'd become. This isn't a story of redemption, at least not the kind you're expecting. It's a raw, unfiltered look at what happens when karma decides to cash in all its chips at once. So, if you're ready for a story that'll make you question everything you think you know about judgment, compassion, and the threads that connect us all, stick around. I promise you, by the time I'm done, you'll never look at a waiting room the same way again. Buckle up, folks. You're about to witness the unraveling of the great Dr. Harper, and trust me, it ain't pretty. I remember that morning like it was yesterday. The ER was its usual chaos, nurses rushing, patients moaning, the constant beep of monitors creating a symphony of urgency. And there I was, Dr. William Harper, striding through it all like Moses parting the Red Sea. "Dr. Harper, we need you in Trauma 3, a nurse called out. I didn't even break my stride. "On my way," I replied, my voice dripping with the confidence that comes from being the best damn surgeon in the state. As I worked, saving lives with the precision of a well-oiled machine, I caught sight of him in the waiting room. A disheveled man, clothes worn and dirty, clutching an old canvas bag like it was his lifeline. Thomas Reed, though I didn't know his name then. Just another nameless face in the sea of humanity that washed up on our hospital shores daily. I remember thinking, great, another junkie looking for a fix. God, I was such an asshole. Hours passed, and I heard the nurses whispering. The homeless man's condition was deteriorating. They wanted me to see him. "He can wait," I snapped. "We have more important patients." And there it was, the arrogant physician trope in all its glory. Me, deciding who was worthy of my time and skill based on nothing more than appearance and social status. If I could go back in time and slap myself, believe me, I would. It wasn't until late afternoon that I finally deigned to see him. I walked into the exam room, not even trying to hide my annoyance. "All right, let's make this quick," I said, not bothering with pleasantries. Thomas looked up at me, his eyes cloudy with pain but still somehow kind. "Thank you for seeing me, doctor," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I grunted in response, already reaching for my stethoscope. "What seems to be the problem?" He started to explain, his words coming out in short, pained bursts. But then something changed. He paused, looking at me with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. "Before we continue," he said, "there's something I need to show you." With trembling hands, he reached for that ratty canvas bag. I remember rolling my eyes, thinking he was about to show me some trinket or keepsake, as if I cared about his personal effects. But when he opened that bag, my whole world stopped. There, nestled in his calloused palm, was a delicate silver bracelet. A bracelet I knew all too well. A bracelet I had given to my little sister, Sarah, on her 16th birthday. The same sister who had died in a car accident years ago, the event that had driven me to become a doctor in the first place. I felt the blood drain from my face. Where did you get that?" I managed to choke out. Thomas's eyes filled with tears. "I was there," he said softly. "The night of the accident, I held her hand as she passed. And just like that, the past connection trope hit me like a freight train. This man, this homeless person I had dismissed and degraded, had been there for my sister in her final moments when I couldn't be. I stumbled backward, my back hitting the wall. The room started to spin. "Tell me," I whispered, my voice cracking. "Tell me everything." Thomas spoke, his words painting a vivid picture of that terrible night. How he had been walking along the road when he heard the crash. How he had rushed to the overturned car, crawling inside to comfort the young girl trapped there. How Sarah had clutched his hand, scared and in pain, and how he had stayed with her, whispering words of comfort until her last breath. She gave me this, he said, holding up the bracelet. Told me to keep it safe. I've held on to it all these years, hoping I might someday find her family. I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. The weight of my arrogance, my dismissal of this man, crashed down on me like a tidal wave. And then, as if the universe decided I hadn't been punished enough, Thomas's eyes rolled back in his head, and he collapsed. "Code Blue," I yelled, my doctor instincts kicking in even as my world fell apart. "I need a crash cart in here now." As we rushed Thomas to the OR, the full impact of what I'd done hit me. This man, who had shown more kindness to my sister in her final moments than I had shown to anyone in years, was dying because I had made him wait. Because I had judged him unworthy of my time. Talk about instant karma. The next few hours were a blur. I operated on Thomas with a desperation I had never felt before. Each incision, each suture was a silent plea for forgiveness, not just to Thomas, but to Sarah, to every patient I had ever disregarded. "Come on," I muttered, my hands moving with a precision born of years of practice and newfound determination. "Don't you dare die on me." I could feel the eyes of the OR team on me. They had never seen me like this, vulnerable, emotional, human. I didn't care. For the first time in my career, I wasn't operating to prove how brilliant I was. I was operating to save a life that suddenly meant more to me than my own. Hours passed. Thomas's condition was touch and go. More than once, I thought we'd lost him. But finally, miraculously, we stabilized him. As I stepped out of the OR, exhausted and emotionally drained, I was met with a mix of looks from the hospital staff. Some were confused, others almost seemed disappointed. Had they been hoping I'd fail? That this would be my comeuppance? I couldn't blame them. I had been a tyrant, a bully. I had created an environment where people probably celebrated my failures. And now, here I was, broken open by a homeless man and a silver bracelet. The next few days were a haze of self-reflection and vigils at Thomas's bedside. I barely left the hospital, catching naps in the on-call room when I could. I needed to be there when he woke up. Needed to... what? Apologize? Thank him? I wasn't sure. When Thomas finally opened his eyes, I was there. He looked at me, confusion clouding his features. "Dr. Harper," he said weakly. I nodded, fighting back tears. "Mr. Reed," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Thomas, I don't even know where to begin." And so I talked. I told him about Sarah, about how losing her had shaped me into the cold, arrogant man I had become. I apologized for making him wait, for dismissing him, for everything. Thomas listened quietly, his eyes never leaving my face. When I finished, he reached out and took my hand. "We all make mistakes, Dr. Harper," he said softly. "What matters is what we do to fix them." In that moment, something shifted inside me. The walls I had built around my heart for years began to crumble. I saw Thomas not as a patient, not as a homeless man, but as a human being, a friend. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of change. As Thomas recovered, I threw myself into helping him get back on his feet. I pulled strings, called in favors, did whatever I could to find him housing and job opportunities. But more than that, I began to change how I practiced medicine. I instituted new policies at the hospital, ensuring that every patient, regardless of their background, received prompt and compassionate care. I started volunteering at homeless shelters, offering free medical services. My colleagues were shocked at first. Some thought it was a phase, a temporary bout of guilt-induced philanthropy. But as the weeks turned into months, they began to see that this change was real and lasting. One day, as I was leaving a shelter after a long day of checkups and minor procedures, I ran into Dr. Amanda Chen, one of the ER doctors who had witnessed my transformation firsthand. "I never thought I'd see the day," she said, a hint of a smile on her face. "The great Dr. Harper, man of the people." I chuckled, shaking my head. "Neither did I, Amanda. Neither did I." "You know," she continued, her tone more serious now, "when all this started, after Thomas came in, a lot of us thought, well, we thought you deserved what was happening to you. The stress, the guilt. We were almost glad to see you brought down a peg." I nodded, understanding. "I don't blame you. I was a real piece of work." But now, she said, seeing how you've changed, how you've used this experience to become a better doctor, a better person. It's inspiring, Will. You've turned this whole hospital around. Her words hit me hard. I had been so focused on my own journey, on making amends, that I hadn't fully realized the ripple effect it was having on those around me. Thank you, Amanda, I said, my voice thick with emotion. That means a lot. As I drove home that night, I thought about how far I'd come. From the arrogant physician who saw patients as mere medical puzzles to solve, to someone who truly cared about the human beings behind the symptoms. I thought about Thomas, who had become a close friend. He was doing well, working as a counselor at a rehab center, using his own experiences to help others. We met for coffee regularly, and each time I was struck by his wisdom and kindness. And I thought about Sarah, about how, in a way, she had saved me through Thomas, how her bracelet had become a symbol not just of loss, but of redemption. When I got home, I went straight to my study. There, in a frame on my desk, was a photo of Sarah and me from when we were kids. Next to it sat her silver bracelet, which Thomas had insisted I keep. I picked up the bracelet, running my thumb over its delicate links. "Thank you, Sarah," I whispered. "I hope I'm making you proud now." As I set the bracelet down, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Thomas. "Dinner tomorrow? I've got a new mentee I'd like you to meet. Think you might be able to help him out?" I smiled, typing back a quick "absolutely." And there it was. The unexpected friendship trope, come full circle. Thomas and I, from opposite ends of the social spectrum, now bound by a shared history and a commitment to helping others. If you had told me a year ago that I'd be here, humbled, changed, and genuinely happy, I would have laughed in your face. But life has a funny way of knocking you on your arse when you least expect it. I'm not perfect. I still have my moments of arrogance, of impatience. But now, when I feel myself slipping into old habits, I think of Thomas. I think of Sarah. I think of that silver bracelet and all it represents. And I remember that every patient, every person, has a story. That behind every face in the ER waiting room could be someone who held the hand of a dying girl on a dark night. Someone who kept a promise for years, waiting for the right moment to fulfill it. So that's my story, the tale of how an arrogant physician and a homeless man's paths crossed, and how a simple silver bracelet turned my life upside down. It's a story of mistakes and redemption, of loss and unexpected connections. But mostly it's a reminder that sometimes the most profound changes in our lives come from the most unlikely places, and that it's never too late to become the person you should have been all along. Well, folks, you've just witnessed the unraveling of the great Dr. Harper. Pretty wild ride, huh? If you've made it this far, I bet you're as shocked as I was when that silver bracelet turned my world upside down. Now, I've got a question for you. Have you ever experienced a moment that completely shattered your perception of someone? Or maybe you were the one who surprised everyone? Drop your stories in the comments below. Trust me, after everything I've been through, I'll read every single one. If this tale of arrogance and redemption struck a chord with you, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell icon too. You wouldn't want to miss out on more jaw-dropping stories like mine, would you? Oh, and one more thing. I've put together a special playlist called Unexpected Encounters That Change Lives. It's full of stories that'll make you think twice about judging a book by its cover. You can find it in the description below. Thanks for sticking with me through this mess of a journey. Who knows? Maybe watching my story will help you avoid making the same mistakes I did. Until next time, this is Dr. William Harper signing off. Stay humble out there, folks.